So let's now broaden our lens and look at the bigger picture, how leadership and influence are evolving on a global scale. Excuse me. As the world continues to shift, understanding who is shaping that change and what it means for businesses and leaders has never been more important. In the upcoming panel on the next 50 years of global power, who will lead, who will follow, and who will be left behind? Excuse me. Experts will explore the forces redefining global influence, the players driving change, and what it means for those looking to stay ahead. With, pardon me, one moment, sorry. Without any further ado, let's welcome moderators J. Patrick Laing, founder and CEO of Certainty Management and S3 Energy Development. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Welcome to the stage. And Vibha Chawla, Chief Growth Partner at FocalPoint Business, and our panelists. John Warner, Chief Customer Officer at American Battery Solutions, Dr. Robert Hutcherson, CEO of Optimize Consulting LLC, and Dr. Trina Wilson, owner and CEO of Life Counseling and Assessment Center. Welcome to the stage. Make yourselves comfortable.
Welcome and thank you for joining us for our panel today. As was explained, the topic is global power. Who will lead, who will follow, and who will be left behind? We have a diverse and a unique panel here from various industries and various walks of life. We had a good time. We've had a good time getting to know each other a little bit and talking through this topic that touches a lot of industries, a lot of areas, and a lot of interests. I thought we'd start out. Maybe I can introduce myself first, and then we'll go down the line here. As stated, my name is Patrick Laing. I'm the owner of Certainty Management. We're a profitability consultant, so we help clients to make more and keep more. We also encourage them to give more. We have associates coast to coast and clients in all 50 states as well as abroad. And then I also own a technology company named Certainty Global, a company named Certainty Holdings, and we just started a new one called Certainty Veterans. We need to help our veterans access their benefits. So through our work, we are involved in power for AI data centers. It's a certain kind of power, but we're going to be talking about lots of different kinds, right? So next up, we have Dr. Trina. Go ahead.
Good afternoon. I am Dr. Trina Wilson, and I am from Atlanta, Georgia, and I am the founder and CEO of Life Counseling and Assessment Center. And what we do there is we offer a wide variety of services. We also provide services to veterans as well, and we help them, get more benefits that they need and that they deserve from serving our country. In addition to that, we also help entrepreneurs scale their businesses from what they currently have to what it is that they desire to do by placing systems in place. So we provide a wide variety of services.
Next up, I think you have to pass the mic.
Oh, we're mic'd up.
Or is everybody mic'd? Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Robert Hutcherson, CEO of Optimize Consulting and founder of the Organizational Optimization Framework. Where basically it's strategic alignment and execution. We've been blessed to have some very interesting clients, including U.S. Army Central Command, the Defense Logistics Agency, which handles the supply chain for the military, and other government agencies. And so we've helped them to become more strategically aligned and operate in a more efficient and effective manner. I've authored 3 books, and we just launched Optimize University to help teach the organizations as well that want to know more about the optimization model.
Awesome. Thanks. So I'm Dr. John Warner. I am the Chief Industry Relations Officer and one of the co-founders for American Battery Solutions. American Battery Solutions, or ABS, is a battery pack manufacturer. We focus on providing propulsion batteries for things like transit buses, delivery vehicles, kind of industrial and fleet applications. Working in a very competitive market, very interesting for this panel when we talk about global power. But I've spent about 20 years in the auto industry and the last 17 years in the battery space. So I've been with 5 different startups, including this one that we've helped start today. So really excited to talk about this subject and dig into it with the panelists.
Hello, this is Vibha Chawla. I am from FocalPoint Business Coaching. I'm the Chief Growth Partner. What we do is we help companies increase revenues and profits. So how do we do that? There are 5 aspects of this: clarity, operational efficiency, marketing strategy, sales, and leadership. Our specialty is 10 to 30% revenue increment in 3 months and doubling revenues or profits in 1 to 3 years. So I'm very excited about the topic that we have here, what lies in the next 50 years. I think there are similar themes to what has been going on in the past, but yeah, excited to be on the panel. Thank you.
So as we talk about this topic of global power, again, it touches a lot of different areas. We have some various backgrounds here on our panel. But we asked the question last night as we were talking about what we'd say today, and the first question I said was, what does it mean to you? You know, what is the first thing that comes to mind for you, for example, Dr. Trina, when you think global power? How is it going to be affected? Who's going to lead? Who's going to follow? Who's going to fall behind? What's the first thing that comes to mind for you?
I believe the first thing that comes to mind for me is preventive. We need to put some preventive measures in place so that we don't continue to have a widening of the gap that we currently have.
So we have to have some foresight. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely,
I
absolutely.
say if you don't prepare, if you fail to prepare, you prepare to fail, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. We don't want to do that. We don't want to continue to do that.
That's
we want
right.
to put a plan in place so that we can know what we need to execute so that we can perform better.
100%. You know, as I look at my career and as we've discussed our careers, you see these themes that come through, I call them eternal principles that don't change. It doesn't matter what industry you're in.
That's right.
Doesn't matter what your background is. These principles stay the same. I'm a big systems manager. Robert here on our left. We have 3 doctors in the middle of us, so Vibha and I are the bookends. But Robert, I know you're a systems expert, right? And you've worked with strategic command, the military, the government, et cetera, et cetera. You know, sometimes we joke that the government needs to have more foresight. You are actively seeking to help them do so. What's the first thing that comes to mind for you when you think of global power, and we'll talk more about who's going to lead it, but first, how do we prepare and do it right?
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. You think of this as citizens of our countries and stuff. We are the customers. We should be looked at as the customers. And they should spend our money in an efficient and effective manner. Now, the joke is that most governments do not do that. They are not strategically aligned. They work in fragments and silos and so forth. So I believe the countries who will lead in the next 50 years or so are going to be better strategically aligned. They're going to look at, the leaders will look at their organization holistically, understand cause and effect better, and actually get the biggest bang for the buck, so to speak.
Well, 50 years sounds like a long time, but it's a drop in the bucket, right?
It is.
Last night, John and I, Dr. Hutcherson on the end there, he and I were talking about, Warner. Yeah, you're right. Dr. Hutcherson, too many doctors in our group. Dr. Warner and I, we were talking about some of the differences between China and America, right? And how they have a 5-year plan. They continue to update. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that, because so much of where we go is the plan we have.
Yeah, exactly right. And so again, I work in the battery industry, and the battery industry is right now being led by China. And largely, one of the reasons China is leading in that industry is because of the 5-year plan. And we're now in the 15th five-year plan in China, and it's just getting ready to get published, so I'm looking forward to reviewing it. But they've been very consistent. It's been very interesting. They decided in 2005 or something, that was the first five-year plan, but they decided that these are the technologies and the industries that we need to invest in for the country. And so for the last 20 years, they have been consistently investing into that one. So you've seen them making investments in things like infrastructure, in things like energy, in batteries, in technologies that affect their country and their nation. And so, you know, they've been able to take a leadership position in some of these industries that, at least that I participate in, like the battery space. And it's largely because of this consistent, you know, plan. I think that's one of the things I struggle with in my industry here in the U.S. is that our policy changes every 2 to 4 years. It's hard to do long-term planning when you can only look 2 years out.
And it's hard to affect real change if you're constantly reactive,
Exactly.
right? You have to be proactive. That's one thing China is doing well. They are proactively implementing this plan, following this five-year plan. And then it's not set in stone. Every year they're adjusting it, right? Is it every year they do it or every 5 years?
So it's every 5 years.
Okay, and so every 5 years they're recalculating, and they're constantly adjusting and getting better, right? I think there's something we could learn from that, perhaps.
Absolutely.
I have a question for you, Vibha, but I thought of an analogy of that. In one of our businesses, we help employers who have at least 10 or more W-2 employees. We help them access a benefit platform. It's AI-driven, it's health and wellness, it learns the employee's needs and so forth. Every employee can get it at no cost to them, plus an insurance policy, et cetera, but it's paid for out of FICA tax. And we joke that it's an example of Congress having foresight. They're saying, we'll let you pay less taxes if you use it toward health and wellness for your employees, right? They know that if they do that now, it's going to save billions later on Medicare. And we do joke about it. We say, that doesn't happen very often, but here's an example of them having some foresight. I think that's a really critical principle. We're talking about these recurring or eternal principles. Having a plan and having foresight is maybe the first step, right? Vibha.
Yes.
You are an excellent example of someone who understands this principle well and is implementing it and teaching it to your clients. Do you have an example maybe you could share?
Yeah, I think I'm going to take a little bit pivot to it in the sense that I think the problems that I see with my clients as to why they are not increasing their revenue and profits is I think we need to change that volume mindset. That's what is happening with a lot of my clients. Like they're putting in a lot of investments, more initiatives, more innovation, and they're so distracted, right? We implemented technology, okay. What was the value realization out of it? Projects are delivered, but at the same time, there is no profit measurement of it. So I think that's where I feel like we need to change things a little bit there. We need to be more proactive, but not thinking more as a volume mindset, but more as a focus mindset. What is one thing that the company is going to do? Talking about one thing, there could be 1, 2, 3, but there shouldn't be hundreds of initiatives that are going on, and we are spending billions of dollars. I'm like, okay, what's going on here? Versus, so the scale, if you want to scale, it's not the volume that is going to scale, it's the focus that's going to scale.
Right.
Clear, focused initiatives that are going to scale. Because I talk about revenue and profits, I think that is going to be the same thing in future as well. With AI coming into the picture, now it's like, oh, let's put AI here, let's put AI. I'm like, what is the outcome that we are trying to drive?
Right.
So outcome-based strategic planning, but also at the same time focused, not distracted. So focused efforts to make sure that we are driving the outcomes that the clients need.
Absolutely. And feel free to interject, anybody, if you have a thought. But, you know, we talk all the time about quality versus quantity, right? And it's along the same lines. When you have this plan, this objective, you have your 5-year plan or your 1-year plan or your 10-year plan, whatever it is, it starts with values, right? You talked about that last night, Trina. Maybe you can share some thoughts, because I think having that compass correct when you get started is a first step in the right direction.
For me, what I believe is that we really need to check what our moral compass is.
Right.
What do we want to do as a human being? I'm real big on, if it doesn't feel right, then don't do it. We want to do preventive measures that will enhance the human life. Not really about the profit margin, but if we enhance human life, if we put systems in place that are preventive, if we feel good about that when we go to sleep at night, and we're able to enhance the lives of others, then I believe that we've done a good thing that day.
I couldn't agree more. I think a lot of it comes down to asking the question, what is the value we're adding? Not just what are we taking, what are we getting, but what is the value we're adding? There's one of my favorite book series is called the Go-Giver series, and it's about what are you giving? There's a Go-Giver salesman, or Go-Giver sell more, the Go-Giver marriage, and the Go-Giver leader. I highly recommend it. Look up the Go-Giver. I'm not the author, but I endorse it. But, Robert, you and I are in actually some similar arenas where you're working with military government. We provide energy and power for military installations, for AI manufacturers, et cetera. You're a systems expert. And where it starts with value and having our moral compass right, and hopefully we have that as a country and have that as individuals or companies, how do we ensure those values get inserted into the actual act of doing business?
No, absolutely. It's strategic alignment, which it comes down to. It doesn't matter what your organization is. If you're in the military, you have a mission. And if everything that you do does not contribute to that mission, why are you doing it?
Right.
And so the same with any type of organization, whether you're a government entity, a military, a non-for-profit, and so forth, everybody has a strategy. But how well do you execute on that strategy? You need to make sure your metrics are aligned, and support that you're measuring so that you know that when you make an impact, your processes are aligned. Everything needs to be in alignment. And good leaders for those type of organizations will know that it's an interconnected organism, and you cannot operate in silos. Even within an organization, you better make sure that one hand is talking to the other so you have a smooth and consistent flow and you're operating, efficiently and effectively.
Too often, I couldn't agree more, but too often we are out of alignment, right? Where we really need to work on our communication. I think one of the biggest things we can do is remove our ego. Because even within our government, there's this ego battle, right? This battle of wills and battle of egos. In fact, a year ago today, approximately, I was at this conference, the first time I came to CXO, and I met a gentleman named Tyler Watkins. He wrote a book called Cellular Alignment. I think alignment might be the most important word we share today. That and reciprocity is my favorite word. But alignment, he teaches in his book, I hadn't even thought about this till now, but he teaches a principle of how the reason we get out of alignment in our lives and in our businesses is because we have addictions and allergies. Addictions are things we're holding on to, might be our ego, right? And allergies are things we're pushing away that would be good for us, right? Last night we were talking about how one of the principles for leadership, the leaders who will lead and who's going to follow them, who's going to be left behind, this topic. The leaders who will do it most effectively are those who will listen, right? They're leaders who are open to input. We all have our favorite politicians and favorite business leaders, et cetera, and sometimes there's a really great leader, but they're not very good at listening. You're like, man, if you just removed your ego, you'd be phenomenal, right? Absolutely. And you'd be so good at this and this and this, but you never admit you're wrong and you never apologize, right? But I've tried to learn that in my life. And what's interesting is when we do admit we were at fault and take accountability, or we do ask for help, we do apologize if necessary, that earns us far more credibility and loyalty than if we pass the buck, right? That's right. So, John, I need to remember, my first name is John, I should remember that, and my dad's name. I believe the way to make it happen is to get the people on the same page behind that, right? I know you have some thoughts on that, because to affect true change, it doesn't have to start at the top. Oftentimes it has to, but to really affect change and see this happen across industries and across nations, we have to get the people pushing for it, right?
Yeah.
Would you agree?
Absolutely, and that's a great point. And I follow what Dr. Hutcherson said right now, is that, again, it's we think about alignment, we think about getting people on board. One of the things I spend a lot of time with is engaging with some of the trade groups and the industry groups, right? And then we use that as a lever to help get our message up into the government, into the DOE, into the Department of War, all of the departments there, so that we can do that one. So the question is, a single straw you can bend, but again, if you've got a group of straws, it's much harder to break those, right? So we try to use that philosophy in the industry as far as how do we get our voice lifted. We're in the midst of doing that with a couple of things with USITC right now. There's some proposed regulation, and they've asked for some feedback, so we're putting our voices together to do it. And so I think on one hand, it's getting that strategic alignment. And then within an organization, kind of building on what you just said, is one of the things that jumped out at me was that mission and vision and values, they're not actually static, right? So you've got to look at them every few years and make sure that you're changing and you're modifying those as the organization evolves. And just a quick example from us is that we were very fortunate. We got acquired in 2023 by Komatsu. So now you've got this small American battery manufacturer and this giant Japanese company there. So how do we merge those together? So we're actually going through this activity right now where we're reevaluating all of our mission, vision, and values. Is it still accurate? Do we need to merge, and do we need to evolve those? And I think that's something we need to remember, that you may write those down on day one when you start the company, but you've got to go back and look at them every so often, because you want to make sure that you're keeping people aligned with those.
Mm-hmm. So, Robert, you talk about fragmented efficiency versus, I'm going to use your exact phrase, true system-level optimization.
Yes.
There's a big difference between those two, and it goes in line with what we're talking about, right?
Absolutely.
Any thoughts on that?
So we do maturity levels. So when we do a snapshot of any organization, we look at their current state. And then based off of that current state, you know where you're at. And what is your desired future state? And to get there, you go through the optimization process bit by bit, looking at the different categories of your organization, whether it's marketing, whether it's strategy, whether it's processes, and you got to be nimble. And the whole thing with optimization is basically, how do we migrate from a reactionary organization to a more proactive, anticipating organization? Now, the countries that I believe are the leaders in that, but they're still very fragmented and stuff, but they're moving in that direction, is India, China, the United States, and the United Arab Emirates. And they're looking at their systems more holistically instead of, piece by piece. And like you mentioned too as well, you've got to look at your short-term strategies, but as well too, your 50-year, 10-year, and all of those get adjusted as things change and get adjusted, with technology and so forth.
I love that. I was just in Dubai, as I said, in December for CXO. I was actually impressed, and I know there's glitches and things with any conference. Imagine putting together 5 different conferences at the same time, all the moving parts, and having it all go off seamlessly. I don't think it's possible, right? But I was impressed enough. I went to Dubai, and I was impressed with Dubai as a city, right? They have no crime. It's very clean. They've implemented systems in that city, and they're very adamant about them. You break the law, you get kicked out, and you're not coming back, right? Right? But I think of you, Vibha, when you talk about how do you do sustained compounding advantage, right? We're talking about implementing these systems, listening as leaders, having a plan, being open to input, having some foresight. But then how do you make it compound and expand?
Compounder. So as I think it's counterintuitive, but as the AI is coming more into the picture, humans are becoming more important, right? The emotional intelligence aspect of things, we are seeing, I mean, this, we used to do leadership assessment. That has been staying here, I think, for decades. But the usage of it has started to increase significantly higher now. Now people want to become more emotionally intelligent because there is so much, I guess, fear of job replacement, of how we will be replaced by AI. So I think what we are seeing here is in the last couple of years that we have started to see a lot more of those leadership assessments being done. So how do you compound it? I think I've seen that a lot of companies have started to come back and say, we want to do more leadership assessment. We want to be better leader. We want to be more adaptable, more emotionally intelligent, because these technology, now combining this, right? The technology can do the assessment of these human beings and they can implement it there to improve their interactions with the humans and be great leaders. So adaptability is very key here, right? Being open to ideas. How do you compound it? It's also the, once you get those results, we were talking about the speed to impact, but it's also the consistency, consistently being great leaders and being adaptable, being open to ideas, being open to looking at new things. So that's what I think I'm going to predict more and more. In the next 50 years, people are going to do more and more leadership assessments because we can actually do now with AI, we can even do a lot of sales assessments very quickly for people. People have to enter the information, but that can impact the revenue significantly too. I know we're talking, this is not just about money, but there are a lot of businesses that struggle, that impact their families. So it really affects their lives. So that's where we are trying to make impact too.
That's right. It's a fact, and one of these eternal principles, these recurring principles that you improve what you measure, right? We've talked about it's not you can't improve something if you're not measuring it, if you're not tracking it, if you're not assessing it. Right. And it's I call it recalculation, like a GPS. We're constantly getting back online. Even a pilot will tell you they're off course more often than not. They constantly have to adjust. As we're driving a car down the road, our hands aren't static. They're constantly keeping us from going in the next lane. Unless you have a Tesla that does it for you, but right, or something like that. But I'd like to ask you a question, Dr. Trina, because all of this, as we're making our plan, we're trying to listen, we're trying to grow, we are assessing and measuring and implementing systems. Mental health weaves through all of it, right? And you are an expert in this area. You're helping companies and your clients across the nation to do it right. Any thoughts on how it applies? You only have 60 seconds. No, just kidding. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, first of all, time, we only have 24 hours in a day.
Yeah.
Right? And one of the things that we have implemented within our company is I don't do any consultations anymore. I have an AI assistant who asks all the questions, and they have a script and will provide me with a summary. So I have more time to service the people. And with that more time, what we want to do is we want to get better care for our people. We want to be able to connect them with the services in which they need so that we can minimize the amount of, we can decrease, let me say it in this way, we can decrease the number of people who we will continue to have that we desire not to have. For example, I desire for the homeless population to go down.
Me too.
Right? And if the homeless population, the only way we can do that is providing more training and more resources. So why am I going to be on the phone with someone to do a consultation when I look at my time management, at the end of the day, I've already utilized 4 of those hours. When I can be utilizing those hours, I can just take that time to help someone get benefits.
Right.
For example, I can help someone figure out what they need to do with their LexisNexis letter that I need to write. Okay, so that will make an immediate impact on the individual, right? That will hopefully yield them more income, which will place them in a better situation to live. So if I have taken away 4 hours of my day during consultation and I'm working 5 hours, that's 20 hours now that I have to put towards someone's growth and betterment. So if we can put systems in place now for the longevity of the next 5, 10 years, you can imagine how many people we will not have on the streets.
I couldn't agree more. I'm a big fan of AI. I think it needs to be used wisely. Safeguards need to be put into place. But I think there is this maybe irrational or unmerited fear of AI. I think we need to be wise. But there's a fear, for example, that's going to eliminate a lot of jobs and it's going to get out of control. It's just ones and zeros, right? But it is a tool, speaking about global power, that will be implemented. It is being implemented, and whoever understands it and utilizes it well will wield power. However, if you don't understand it, it'll teach you. Put it in ChatGPT. What are 100 ways I could use ChatGPT? Whatever. It's not being reactive. We've talked a little bit about being responsive versus reactive, right? Being proactive versus fearful. In so many things, whether it's mental health, whether it's implementing systems, correcting and recalculating, whatever the case might be. As I look at it, I'm in the power industry, so I love the fact that AI is growing because it needs energy, and I can provide it. We come in and provide utility scale, baseload power. We'll even fund the entire thing. So we're helping eliminate the bottleneck that is created. You can have power without raising utility rates, without destroying the grid, without getting sued by the environmentalists. We eliminate all of that because we work in hydrogen. A lot of that has to do with us understanding the value of AI, and we want it to work, right? We want to help fast track the industry because it is happening fast. We talked about that yesterday, John.
Yeah.
If one of the first principles is listening and learning, being open to input, the next one is to do it fast. Right?
Yeah.
Do you mind commenting on that?
Yeah,
because
no,
the
so speed. It's all about speed.
To results it's what it's all about.
Well, and again, I spent a lot of time working in China, especially in the battery industry. And one of the things that has really helped them is speed, right? So again, one of the old adages that I've used for a very long time was, I want my team, if you're going to fail fast, right? Because we can learn from that, and then we move on to the next one. And that's exactly what China has done. And it's been, phenomenal in driving them to this leadership position in some of these technologies, including AI. If you go to a battery factory in China right now, especially one of the major ones, what you're going to find is that it's highly automated and it's largely run by AI. And they have one of my favorites. They have what they call blackout floors. They have floors where there's no people on. Never. It's a material handling floor. Robots come in.
A lot less HR problems on that floor, right?
Yeah, all the HR problems. But again, they've taken that and they've applied those philosophies around speed to market, speed, and even just again some of the things that we do here in the battery industry. It may take years to get. Let's say if we look at a mine, right? So it takes 7 to 10 years to get a new mine approved in the U.S. Australia has just revamped all their processes. They can get permitting done in about 3 years now. So we've got to look at how do we do things faster, because sitting and waiting is not going to drive us to the new technology. We're going to be slow followers in the industry.
Vibha, how do we do that? How do we do things faster, in your opinion? Because others are, and if we don't do it, we will fall behind even more than we already are.
Yeah, I think Dr. John already said that. You have to continue to act on it, right? You don't sit and wait, but there is speed. But I think for me, it's more about, I see the speed for action, but at the same time, I don't see consistency with it. So
it goes in spurts, kind of
it's
like a roller coaster? Or?
Yeah, he was talking about speed to impact for, if you're failing, fail fast. But then what is succeeding, what I see is they don't continue to work on that. So that's a big challenge. Like if you're seeing success somewhere, then compound it to growth. Right. Be consistent about it. Instead, they're like, okay, let's try something else. Let's try something else. I'm like, you're pivoting too much, but you already know there is a success here. So I think for me, it's more what I see the challenge is consistency. they're failing fast, they're learning, but at the same time, wherever they are learning, they're not compounding to growth. They just pivot and say, okay, let's try something new.
Right. I agree.
That's my challenge.
You know, there's an interesting blend of these principles. They touch each other, right? There's this almost like a kaleidoscope or a tapestry. So much of moving fast is measuring how you're doing and making improvements. It's listening to feedback from the people in the trenches, the people on the street, from the people in the country, right? What do we want to go fast at, et cetera. I remember the example, I heard it in one of the other keynotes earlier today. They were talking about how they spent millions of dollars to try to come up with a pen that would work in space.
Yeah.
And I think it was the Russians who just sent a pencil, right? Cost a lot less and it was a lot faster, right? And so sometimes it's just stepping back and asking just common sense questions is, are we on the right track or do we need to backpedal a little bit and get off, you know? And so...
Patrick, let me jump on that one. So
Go ahead.
I'm going to add something to that because the other thing I think the aspect of that is partnerships, right? So again, when we think about speed and how do we accelerate that speed, again, you know, we've got to eliminate the not invented here syndrome sometime because a lot of times you'll get into this focus in an organization that we've got to do this, but you may find that, hey, there's somebody out there that we can partner with who's may already have that one. Let's take advantage of those, whether it's, you know, in another country or it's a potential competitor. How do we partner with them in ways that are non-competitive, right, so that we can take advantage of some of those technologies? That's one of the things that I don't know that we always do enough is partnering.
I couldn't agree more. That's actually our third principle. We talk about learning and listening, being open to input, and then moving as fast as you can. It has to be speed with wisdom, right? And part of that is measuring, assessing, recalculating, and then collaborating. Some of the best examples I think of are the Apollo 11 mission. There was this spacecraft in peril, and nations came together to get them home safely, right? Same thing with the Marshall Plan. Remember, after World War II, even enemies came together and worked to help Europe recover. And so we have to learn to work together, even with those we have differences of opinion. We can agree to disagree on things, right? Let's work for the overall good of the planet and the good for each other in our nations. Maybe spend less on defense and more on education and some of those things. Mental health, right, Dr. Trina? So I have a question for you, Robert, though. Where is the biggest breakdown, do you think, between strategy and execution?
It's having a execution framework. So everybody has a strategy, but they don't necessarily have a framework to execute.
Yes.
So more organizations, their studies have been done, 75 to 90% of organizations, they fail to execute on their strategy. Not that they didn't have a strategy, but they didn't have an execution vehicle to do that. And also, too, as well, like you mentioned, I think the whole world learned a lesson during COVID. That if you're not adaptable, have adaptable supply chains and all of those kind of things, so risk mitigation plays a key role too as well, no matter what your strategy is.
The wheels fall off pretty quickly, don't they?
The wheels fall off, and as things are changing, and we're in an ever changing world, the human element is key. We can have all the technology, all the systems, and so forth, but those are all tools that help this, whether it's military, whether it's an organization, whether it's a nonprofit, to execute properly. So I think that's the biggest gap, is that most organizations don't have a strategic framework to execute. So.
Right, and I think so much of success as leaders, as founders, as C-suite, whatever our role is or our objectives are, so much of it comes to abiding by these principles of listening, having a plan, going fast, but going wisely, right? And then collaborating. John, you talked about consolidation the other day.
Yeah.
I think it's just one example, right, of collaborating and combining our forces to, I mean, you were bought out by a larger company,
Yeah.
and now it's I assume they're taking it to another level, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, in my industry, that's kind of, again, we've seen this go through different phases. And you see this in a lot of industries, but we're in the midst of what we call a consolidation phase right now. And for us, it's a capital is actually the driver for it. So our industry tends to be very capital intensive. It can cost, $60 to $100 million to put in a small line. So you can imagine putting in a full cell factory. We generally tell people if you're going to put in cell manufacturing, you're going to spend billions with a B, right? And so if you're not prepared to do that one. And so I think that's what we're seeing is a lot of us smaller and mid-sized companies, we get to that point where we need that capital to be able to expand into that next range. And it's just difficult to do with VC funding at that point. And so that's where some of the larger companies that are strategically aligned are starting to absorb some of the smaller ones and partner with them and be able to create those win-win solutions. That was certainly what it was with us when Komatsu acquired us. We are culturally very strategically aligned. They've got a great long-term focus, and they've been a great partner for us. And it's pushed us to new limits, right? So it's pushed us to those areas where, again, a 5-year-old manufacturing company and a 105-year-old manufacturing company have different experiences.
That's right.
So we were able to take advantage of those learnings in their quality systems and their supply chains and try to apply some of those learnings and improve our processes and the way we do business.
Well,
we're seeing that all through our industry.
Right, right. I mean, here in the United States, we think we're old because we're coming up on, 150 years, 200 years?
250.
And you go to Europe, and I was in Munich in December, and there was a restaurant that was established in, I think, 672 AD, right? It's 1,400 years old, right? We might be able to learn something
Same management?
from the Germans or from the Chinese or
consistency.
from UAE. I mean, how
growing.
old is the Persian Empire, right? I think we can learn things from each other. And there are things that we can teach, obviously. Here in the United States, we're pretty smart. We've learned some things, and they are things, I mean, we are the example of democracy, right? That the entire world looks at and wants to follow. At least they aspire to it, right?
Right.
Robert, as you're hearing us talk about systems and advantages and how to shorten the learning curve, that's really what we want, right? We want to figure it out as fast as we can, as painlessly as possible. From your experience working with Strategic Command and the federal government, and so if anybody's bureaucratic, those guys are, right?
Can be.
What's the secret to working with them or with any customer or any country that's slow to figure it out? They're not listening, or in your experience, I assume from your career, you've learned how to be heard.
Yes.
Got anything you want to share with us about that?
Absolutely. Well, like you mentioned earlier, be a good listener. So when we go in, it's like, what the heck are these guys going to tell us that we've been doing all our lives, And so what we try to do is, I've been blessed with working with very open-minded leaders. And general officers, I mean, you want to talk about egos and everything else, a lot of them have that. But if you go there and basically explain to them how you can help them become strategically aligned, become more efficient, help to mitigate the risks to prevent soldiers from dying on the battlefield, all of those kind of things. I've been blessed to have leaders, with an open mind. I had one leader in Europe, the European Command, is like, Hutch, I look at 120 metrics, and it's like it drives him nuts. So it's like, no, sir, let's align those, find out cause and effects of each of those, whatever, so it's manageable at your level, at the next level, and then at the next level. And so, it's definitely listening, working together as a community, whether it's a command or a governmental agency or whatever, get everybody's input and assess, where there is gaps, where there is a lack of alignment, where there are a lack of metrics. Are you working on outdated IT systems or whatever it may be? How can we reduce the cycle time of the strategy to the actual execution of whatever that may be? And so we were able to make a huge impact in several of the entities. and, you know, a benefit to the taxpayer in essence of $4 billion.
That's great. You know, you talk, John, about failing fast. I always talk about failing forward. You know, we can fall back and give up or lose hope or get frustrated, or we can learn from it. I love Thomas Edison's example. You talked about that last night about he didn't fail 10,000 times. He found 10,000 ways to not do a light bulb. Right? And how much did he learn in that process? Right?
Yeah.
You've seen that in your career, I'm sure. I know you have, Vibha.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I appreciate you bringing that. That's one of my favorite quotes. Thomas Edison was being interviewed by one of his good friends, and the guy says, "Aren't you getting depressed? You failed." And they were trying to develop a new battery, right? At the time, lead acid was brand new. It was 1890, right, 1900. And so he says, "Oh, you guys you failed like 10,000 times." He goes, "Wait a minute, I found 10,000 ways it doesn't work." Right. So again, it's all about your mindset, right, and how you're positioning yourself, because that next 10,001 may be the time when it works. So it's not about, it's about learning from each one and then using that to be able to drive yourself forward and keep pushing forward.
Yeah, I think I can add to that as well.
Sure.
The greatest successes come from the greatest failures as well. Earlier, I was interviewing one lady, and she was in pharma world, because that's where I come from, and she was trying to find a job. I think multiple years she couldn't find a job, and she said, "Okay, nobody is going to offer me the job. I'm going to set up my organization." And today, she owns like $300 to $400 million revenue company. So, so that was her learning. And yeah, I mean, I think it's $1 billion evaluation. And I think the other lady, if I'm not mistaken, Canva founder, her company is valuated as, I think, 40 billion, something like that. But she was also struggling for 3 years. And I think it was 101 rejection when she got the success. So I totally agree. Like, the greatest success comes from the greatest failure. Who would have thought that person who cannot find a job is going to build a $50 billion company?
That's right.
Right.
How many of us couldn't find a job, hated what we did, and so we started our own business, right?
Absolutely. I just want to jump in there and talk
Go
about
ahead.
mindset a little bit.
Yeah, and
It's the mindset, right?
Yes.
And that's what we do. We want people to affirm who they are.
Yes.
We want you to know who you are. We want you to know what your moral compass is and affirm yourself. And nothing beats a failure but a try. You just have to keep trying. Keep trying, keep educating yourself, right? And it's just going to all come together. It's all going to come together.
So what are, Dr. Trina, as she's talking about this entrepreneur who grew this multi-million-dollar company, I thought of you, because that's what you've done, right? What are the consequences of us not doing it right on a national level, a global level?
Yeah. You know, I was asked that yesterday on a different panel, and everyone keeps asking me the same question. What are the consequences, right? Have you counted the cost? And I always tell people, you know, I counted the cost. You know, when I started my business, I just quit my job because I could not deal with how they were just treating people. Like, you want me to go in and do an assessment with a grandmother who hasn't seen anyone in 6 weeks, and you want me to be in and out in 15 minutes. Well, she took her 15 minutes to get to the chair. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're trying to, you know, what do you want me to do here? No, this is not, doesn't feel right. So I did my own business. And the cost of you not doing your own business, you're going to sacrifice yourself. You're going to take those great ideas to the grave. You know, and one of my good friends says this to me all the time: the richest place in the world is the graveyard. There are a lot of dreams that are unfulfilled. There are a lot of amazing ideas where people were just too fearful.
Yeah.
They didn't believe in themselves enough just to keep trying, just to keep going, because they felt like the cost was too much. Well, is it too much of a cost to keep going, or is it too much of a cost to look at yourself in the mirror when you're 90, 95 years old and say, woulda, shoulda, coulda. I wish I could have, I should have, if I would only have. You can't afford to do that. So what we try to do is to help motivate people. Get your mind right. Get a reset in your mind. Wake up every day, look yourself in the mirror, do some affirmations, ground yourself, you know?
And say, I'm worth it.
There you go. There you go. Absolutely.
Yeah, the panel here are examples of several entrepreneurs who went through that epiphany, right? I did, you did, so many of us did. And the most common response you hear from entrepreneurs is, I wish I'd done it sooner.
Absolutely.
Right? It is fear that keeps us from going, maybe fear of change, etc. I always say that there's three different shelves that we look at. The bottom shelf are things we've learned in the past that we draw from, our experience, our upbringing, and we can hold on to those. We can utilize those to grow from and build from. The middle shelf is all of the things that we're learning today. Right? Hopefully we're keeping our mind open, we're networking, we're collaborating, we're consolidating, we're keeping our mind open to input and growing every minute. But the top shelf are the things we don't know yet, we haven't learned yet. And too often we think we have to know it all, have all the answers to all the questions before we take that step into the dark. Remember Indiana Jones when he was going after the Holy Grail and he stepped out into the dark and realized there was a bridge. Couldn't see it, right? We're out of time. We need to wrap up. But one of my favorite stories, I'll just end with this if I may. Unless there's anything anybody wants to add, I'm going to turn the time. Okay. We have 2 minutes. We're right on track. So one of my favorite stories is from the author C.S. Lewis. He's a famous Christian author, but you know he was an atheist. And he was very good friends with the author of the Hobbit series and the Lord of the Rings, J.R.R. Tolkien, who was a Christian. And they didn't agree on this God question, right? And C.S. Lewis cared for his friend, he respected him, and he said, I'll hear you out. And they had many great conversations. In the process, C.S. Lewis became a Christian. He opened his mind, he listened to his friend and R.R. Tolkien and others, and he ended up changing, he ended up growing, right? And he went on to write some of the most extraordinary Christian literature, Mere Christianity, the Screwtape Letters, et cetera, et cetera. And he talks about, one of his quotes that I really love, he says, I believe in the sun, not because I can see it, but because by it I can see all things. I can see everything else. These principles of being open and listening, right? Of hearing input, being willing to admit when you're wrong, trying to go fast but also going wise, recalculating when you can, collaborating. We all want our kids to be better than us. We hope they get good mentors and coaches and teachers, right? They say you'll become the sum total of the 5 people you spend the most time with. If you don't like those 5, go find 5 more, right? But that quote about, I believe in the sun because I can see it, but not because just I can see it, but by it I see all things. These principles, they enable you to see more and do it faster. And it creates not just these ripple effects, it creates a snowball effect that's picking up speed and getting bigger as it goes. To answer our original question, who will lead and who will follow and who will get left behind? I know my panelists here agree that the people who lead, the countries that lead are those who figure that out, who do those principles, because it permeates into everything else. And the people in countries who do that will be followed. We will be loyal, we'll be collaborative, and we'll accomplish much more. We're out of time. Thanks for being here today. And thanks for putting up with us. Nice job, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Right.